All right, in this video, we're going to be looking at the error. There is already an object named the name in the database. Now, this relates to creating a table on the fly. If you ever get this error in general, like for instance with a view or with a stored procedure or with anything, it means exactly what it says. There's already an object with that name in the database, and you're not able to create another object with that name. Now, in this case, if we look at the right-hand side, so this right here, I believe the highlighter will show, but this side of the screen, if we look at this, we're creating a table on the fly here. We're also doing that as well, but let's look at the right-hand side. It's definitely more zoomed in. So we're creating some variable tables. We're inserting some data. We're then doing some cross-applies with this, and then, of course, we're selecting star. We're creating this HashMe table. And then, of course, we're doing a select star from the HashMe, doing a join, unioning it with another join, and we see the output here. We'll also see that the object ID HashMe does not exist when we start this, but it does exist once we execute this. Now, because this drops, this means that if we executed this again, it would be fine. However, if there was an error anywhere in here from the time that we create this, and we'll see this in a second, it could potentially suspend the transaction, which means this drop does not occur. So that would be fine if the transaction terminates, because this is a temp table, so we don't have anything to worry about. If it was a real table, we would have something to worry about, because if it executed again as a different transaction, that would be fine. But if we were trying to call it within the same transaction again, we would start to have trouble, and we see that on the left-hand side of the screen. So again, we're doing the exact same thing here, but you'll notice on this unit all, the second one, hash doesn't actually exist. It's a temp table that doesn't exist. That's what the red squiggly means, is it can't find that. We get this error here. There is already an object named HashMe in the database, because on the first execution, this broke. I don't show that on the screen, but on the first execution, this broke. So it did everything. It created that HashMe table, but when it got to here, it said, well, wait a minute, hash doesn't exist. And so it failed. Right? But that means it never got to this drop table part, right? So when I ran the transaction again, we'll notice that when we selected the object ID of HashMe, we got an object back, right? We should be getting null, right? But the problem is that we got an object back. So that first transaction that created everything but failed here because there is no hash table ended up causing, when I executed the transaction again, the second transaction to fail because this HashMe table existed. So when I tried to do the select star into, it wasn't going to work. Now, the reason why I bring this up is I'm a big fan of creating tables on the fly. It's a great thing to do, especially when it comes to quick hackery. Though when it comes to, storage procedures or whatnot, part of the reason why I'll go ahead and I'll declare a table or I'll create a table is because I want it to be cleaner than this. But yes, if I'm just quickly trying to debug something or quickly trying to code something or quickly trying to test something in development, this is a very useful technique, the select star into. But just be aware that it can potentially introduce this bug. And again, of course, with these type of temp tables, it's not that much of a bug if the transaction terminates anyway. In other words, if that transaction closes out, I get that if it fails and it closes out, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But if you're using any type of table in general, I would definitely be careful about doing it this way. Should also be of note that the select star into does not work with variable tables. It's going to work with your global temp tables and it's going to work with your local temp tables, but it's not going to work with your variable tables. So I'm not against this type of syntax. I think it's very useful in development, especially if I don't want to explicitly create a table. It's going to build the structure as you see automatically based on the data format that are there. In this case, it's very easy, but it's one of those things that if you do introduce that into your procedures, just be aware of this bug, especially if there's further things that have to occur. And let's say, for instance, let's say we were going to keep this table around, and after this, we were going to delete from this table, then add more data, then do another join or whatnot, and then update data from it. Well, if this fails at any one of those steps, right, that's going to end up causing some errors in our environment. So we just want to be careful about that. And in general, I'll say that if we were, creating a table as well, that would be another issue as well. Anytime there's any type of failure, we should just be aware of that.